Hello and welcome to all DAZ users in this presentation of the crime scene analysis outfit for DAZ users. The crime scene analysis outfit is made of a mask and of gloves. All of them are morphables and present two texture options. So let's drag and drop the mask and the gloves on Micro 4. Remember that when you load CR2s, cloth for generation 4, the shaders by default will probably be pose ones. So you have to go in pose, not in material, and load the corresponding material. So now a little presentation of the material. The mask has two materials, pure white and green, and the gloves can be a little bit yellow. You change the material glove by glove, okay, or more bluish. All right, now let's have I'm going to make two parts. First the material part and then the morph part. Concerning the material parts, first the mask. The mask has two materials, either white or green. Let's keep the green and frame a little bit, and let's make a little render for it. Okay, the render is really small. What can be interesting is that depending on the distance of your camera, you can add more or less detail only by playing on the bump values. I'm going to do this very fast. I'm going to select the surfaces, maybe all of them, why not, and change the bump strength, okay? And this one is going to be extremely bumpy, but is going to give you another aspect. Let's make 600. Render. Okay, here you see you are very bumpy. This may be convenient for the borders, but this is maybe too much for the center. So I'm going to change only the center value and make a new render. Okay, and this is the most interesting element to play with. Now the mask is not very complex regarding materials. I have developed special shaders which work also on DAZ 3 and which works also on Genesis gloves. Okay, and if you have a deeper look at this material, you will see that it's just like any material that you have generally, except that it's having two normal maps for the folds, and you have something called decrease fold intensity. Now let's make a little render of the glove. Okay, you have glove with folds. These folds are linked to this normal map. Now you can decrease the folds intensity the way you want, and you can increase it also the way you want. Here I'm decreasing a bit the fold intensity. I'm going to come back to my surface, okay, and I'm going to totally disable the fold this way. Okay, you don't see the folds anymore, and you can increase the fold intensity. This is interesting depending on the lights you have. Okay, this one is very bumpy, and this is, I think, the most bumpy you can need in a scene. Okay, and playing with this parameter, which is also present in DAZ 3, you also have this dial. You can define the fold intensity that you have. That's, I think, the most interesting feature of it. Of course, you can also play with the bump. Where is my bump? Okay, you can also give a more bumpy aspect to this. Okay, but here it is maybe too much. Okay, still too much. And playing with these two parameters, bump and folds. Bump and folds, it's near the end. Okay, decrease intensity. Playing with bumps and folds, you can have the aspect you want for your gloves. Okay, because having a deeper look at gloves, have no real color textures. Gloves are identified by their shapes and their bump. That's why the two parameters which are the most interesting to reach the value that you want are bump and this decrease and increase fold intensity. Now I have a second color for where is my content library? Okay, I got also a yellow glove. Okay, and this come back to the default values, and you can inverse the normal map. Okay, here you have clearly a positive bump. Now we are on the right glove, and having a look like that, the title is the default folds. Now I can invert the folds. Okay, and the folds will come the other way around. And of course, with these inverted folds, you can also decrease the fold intensity. So this way you can play with the folds on the two values, negative or positive, and you can change the fold intensity and the bump intensity, and you can shape you can define, customize the aspect of the gloves the way you want. Alright, that's all concerning the materials, I think. Now let's go for the shapes. So the shapes, let's select Micro4 and go in parameters, and in its Morph++, normally the gloves and the mask are programmed in order to follow most, okay, of Micro4 morphs and Morph++. I wouldn't say all, because everything is not possible, but most of them. For instance, Morph++ full body for Micro4. Let's go for bodybuilder. Everything's following. Bulk, because bulk is also changing the face, you see. Bulk and heavy, emaciated. Jeremy. You see, everything is following pretty red. I'm going to zero my figure, and now if I take just the end and I choose the Morph++ full head and face. I haven't made Alan, Daryl, Dylan, Eric, but I have the depth. Let's frame it better. Okay, depth, flat. Let's put it back to 0, flat. Full. Everything is not perfect, but generally the morphs are not pushed to their extreme values. Now if you have a look at the mask has morphs in order to shape it a little bit more and to customize it a little bit more. You can pitch it around the nose. Okay, select mask again. You can change the height of the bottom part, of the top part. You can wrap it around the chin, and in this case move a little bit up. Okay, why not pinching again? Okay, you can have a front larger. You can put it away from face. I'm going to come back to 0. Okay, you can put it away from face. You can play with the holders, which is this part here. They can be deeper, they can be larger, they can be thicker in one way and in the other way, in the two ways actually. Okay, this was for the mask. Now for the gloves. Okay, let's frame a part of the end and select the gloves, select, not delete. And the gloves have adjustment morphs and shape morphs. Most of the times we'll play with shapes. This is, okay, there is, for the first morph, there is difference between left and right. I'm going to 0 it again. The morphs are symmetrical, so let's work only for the first ones. I'm going to do it. Let's work only for the first ones. Okay, on the right parts, left, right. You can have round edges sharp way, round edges softer way. Your gloves can be short. This is 100% symmetrical. Okay, it works on the two gloves. If you want it to work only on the glove, if I select the forearm, no, I won't. I don't have it. Well, let's come back there. Go back to shapes. They can be short with round edges because the morphs of short and round edges, the mix did not work, so I made a special morph. Okay, they can be. Let's come back to the gloves. Okay, they can have macro folds on the forearm and on the end independently. These are the main morphs. Now, for instance, if you take the short and round edges, which is the most problematic shape because it's the more morphed, and if you move micro forehand, sometimes you will see poke. We'll see poke here and here. Why? It's because this part of the glove is not supposed to be at this place. It is supposed to be approximately here. So it moves as if it were here. It's roughly speaking. Okay. So what can you do? For the gloves, you have adjustments. We are on the right hand. So we can, here it's the adjustment of the left part, here it's the adjustment of the right part. Adjustment, and you can adjust the forearm, okay? You can, maybe a little bit more, you can adjust the thumb base, here it's not required, but you can adjust this. You can adjust the junction thumb to wrist, and you can adjust the wrist only. Come back to 0. I'm going to reshape it short and round. Okay, you have this hole here and here. What I can do is select Michael 4 and go in the content library pose of this product. And once Michael 4 is selected, you can hide his right hand. Okay, it solves the problem here, but not here because it's the forearm. So for the forearm, you go in parameters. If you are under DAZ3, you go in parameters and adjust the right forearm. That's all. The other thing you can do is even, of course, select this and go in Edit Geometry, apply smoothing modifier, and this will solve your problem. If you are under DAZ4, under DAZ3, of course, it cannot work this way. Okay, so under DAZ3, use these adjustment morphs, and under DAZ4, use the smoothing modifier if required. But generally, it's not required, it's because of specific shapes. Short and round edges, when the gloves become shorter, and when the forearm mesh of the glove is coming near the end. But most of the time, I'm going to delete the smoothing modifier. Edit Geometry, remove smoothing modifier. Okay, so when you are at short and round edges, you can always adjust the forearm. Okay, and this solves your problem. But in most cases, you won't have any problems. You see here, no morph, no problem. What did I want to say? These were the morphs of the gloves. I've spoken of the material of the gloves. Same thing for the mask. Maybe I could show you for Genesis. So for Genesis, I'm going to open a new scene with Genesis. Alright, for Genesis, so you go in Genesis, clothing v3D crime scene analysis outfit, and you can load the gloves. and the mask. Okay, this times it comes with the final materials. So the mask has got approximately the same morphs. You can have you can play with the bottom part height. Okay, the front can be larger. The mask holders can be deeper, larger, thicker. I'm going to zero the figure, select, and zero. You can pinch it around the nose. You can move the top part height, and you can wrap it along the chin. Let's put this back to zero. Okay, and that's it for the morphs of the mask. And now for the gloves, same things as I told before concerning the materials. Now you have round edges, but I have made colors for people. You have the ones which are common for every character, the forearm macrofolds. Okay, select the gloves again, and the hands macrofolds. Okay, 0 and 0. If you don't need it, you can. The mesh smoothing is small, but by default it is enabled. You can disable it to have more sharper morphs. Okay, this does not make a big difference. It makes a small difference. Okay, you have so the actor morphs, which are the forearms and hands folds, but you have some of the morphs which are not, which differs depending on the characters you use. For instance, if I am using, Dave, it's 5. Okay, so the gloves are automatically shaped for David 4, but the morphs are different depending on the character. Let's go back to the parameters of the gloves, and you have round edges. D5, it's for David 5. So as you see, round edges are okay for characters, for all the characters, but you have specific morph for David 5, Freak 5, and I think it is okay for the rest of the characters. Yeah, that's it. For most of them. You have round edges, 14 too. 14. So if I take, no, I put back David to 0, and I take Justin, for instance. Justin, okay. In the parameters of the gloves, if I make just round edges, soft to right, for instance, you know, it's not really beautiful, or it's acceptable, but I didn't like it like that, so I made one special 1/14, okay, which works for Justin and Julie. It's the same for gloves short. You have different versions depending on the characters. Here it's for Justin, it's not the same for Julie. So you have ones for Genesis and David 4, David 5, sorry, Freak 5, Jolly Justin, Michael 5, and Victoria 5. So this way, if a character is based on Victoria 5 or close to Victoria 5, you can activate this dial. For instance, I'm going to take Justin, put it back to 0, and write Victoria 5, okay. For Victoria 5, you see, if I take Genesis gloves, parameters, only the gloves short, it's not really nice, okay? So I could adjust it, for instance, it's the right forearm, sorry. I could adjust it, but it's still not really beautiful. That's why there is a specific glove short for Victoria 5. I made the specific morphs where I felt there was a problem, and these ones are much more beautiful. Okay, and for instance, you have also for Victoria 5 short and round edges. Okay, you see. That's all that I wanted to say, is that for the mask it's working on everybody. There are no specific morphs. For the gloves, sometimes you will find morphs specific to the character. Alright, that's all I think for Genesis. In case of any problem, you can apply the smoothing modifier. It is applied by default on the gloves. On the mask, if you go in parameters general, you have also a smoothing modifier enabled, but the value is 0. So if you need to apply it, I would say take 1 or 2 or 3 collision iterations. Let's go 3 for instance, and 2 smoothing iterations. It gives a little smoother aspect. And that's all. By default it's enabled, but I enabled it at 0 so that people could play with it themselves. That's all I wanted to say, so thank you very much for watching this presentation. I hope that you will like playing with these gloves and with the crime scene elements in general. Have a nice day and have a very creative day. Bye bye everybody.